Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again. It's Friday. We had a beautiful Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day here in Israel, celebrating Israel's 68th birthday and Itamar's 32nd birthday. Now this is a miracle in our time. We've spoken about miracles in other lessons, and there's no doubt that the greatest miracle on earth since the destruction of our temple and being banished from our land is the return of Israel to the land of Israel, the formation of the state, and we all celebrated in beautiful song and a beautiful feast. And now, of course, the personal Itamar for our special event here as our birthday celebration every year, because it was on this year, on Independence Day, on this day, on Independence Day, that we were founded as a community. And our blessing and prayers are to our people, to our community, to our wonderful friends. We continue to grow and prosper and build a beautiful community here on Itamar for all of our brothers and sisters from all over the world, that one day they will return to the land of Israel and join us here on Itamar. This week's portion, Parashat Emor, is wow. Again, I should mention that in Israel we are reading a different portion than America or Jews abroad, because on Passover, the Shabbat right after Passover was for us in Israel not considered the second day of an extra day, because we only celebrate one day as a holiday in Israel, and outside of Israel you got to celebrate 2 days. So they read a different reading, and therefore they're one portion behind us. So here in Israel it is Parashat Emor, and outside of Israel it's Parashat Kedoshim Tiyu, be holy. So anyway, if you see a little bit, it gives you a time to learn our portion a week later, which is good. You can practice it over the week. But anyway, so you should know that we are a week ahead of everyone. But I'm going to go, of course, we live in the land of Israel, where we all should be, and therefore I am going to teach the lesson that applies to the reading here in Israel. Anyway, this week's portion, Emor, again, as I mentioned, is full of a lot of different commandments. But I want to focus on one particular commandment. It says, if you look in chapter 22 in Leviticus, in verse number 1, it's Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor. God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, God commands Moses, and he says to him, Daber el Aaron ve'el banav, speak to Aaron and his sons, v'yinazru mikodshei bnei Yisrael, and they have to separate themselves from the holy sacrifices of Israel, or the holy items. What is kodshim? Kodshim is, and he refers to those particular animals that, or could also be, for example, truma, anything that's a status of holy, that is, the Kohanim are emissaries of Israel to bring to the temple and to offer them on the altar. Or the truma, for example, when Israel gives the Kohanim to partake of truma, which is the tithes, right? Which he has to separate from his vegetables and fruit and vegetables. The Kohanim get a share of that, and they have a certain level of holiness that truma given to a Kohen cannot be eaten while the Kohen is impure, while he's unclean. He has to be clean from the different types of uncleanliness that there exists. And we know that there are many different types mentioned in the Torah. So here, this particular chapter 22, as I mentioned, opens up with God telling Moses to warn the priests that when they are unclean, they have to separate from the holy gifts or the holy items that Israel has donated to the temple or to the priests themselves, right? The true master. And it says, "V'lo yichalu et shem kodshi," you should not disgrace my name, which means if the Kohen will come along and offer why he himself is unclean, a sacrifice given by the Israelites, it's going to be disgracing God's name, because I am God. So here, it's very interesting. This particular verse, it seems like very straightforward, and I'm not going to get into the many, many details regarding this verse, but there are a lot. The Talmud talks about it at length, this whole area of uncleanliness dealing with the priest. But one basic question is, we already learned in different portions of the Torah, Parashat Tzav, we've already discussed that uncleanliness, that a Kohen is not allowed to bring, when he's unclean, he can't enter the temple, he can't offer, he can't work in the temple. So what is sort of the Torah going over it again over here? Why is the Torah repeating this regarding Israel itself? What would be the difference of what was mentioned beforehand, Parashat Tzav, about a Kohen not being able to offer offerings when he's unclean? And you have a beautiful Sforno. Sforno is one of the great rabbis who lived in the late 15th century. On 1490, he was born around 1490 from Italy. A great, brilliant scholar, philosopher, doctor, again an Italian Jew that lived many, many years ago. And he has a beautiful commentary. He usually sticks to the simple understanding of the verses in the Torah. And he says something very profound. And he says, from here we can learn a lot from his explanation. And he says, "V'inazru mikotshei bnei Yisrael," and God commanding the sons of Aaron to pull back, right, from the holy offerings of Israel when they're unclean. What does he say? "Shelo yachshavu shelegodel ma'alatam yu kotshei ha'am kichulin etzlam." He says just a few words, but they're very, very profound. He's saying, what is this all about? He's answering the question we asked. Why does there have to be a special warning to the priests to stay away from the holy items of Israel that they have given to the temple? Or, again, I mentioned before, to the priests themselves. And he says, so they should not think, because on their high level, because the priests are on a very, very high level, that since it was received from the people of Israel, these holy items, they wouldn't have to worry about purifying themselves as the same way they would do when they are bringing themselves a holy item that they're doing in the temple, or like public sacrifices or other things that they have to do in the temple. Being on a high level as priests, they figured, okay, when it has to do with the temple, things that are for the public that we're bringing. But on a personal level, when someone, an irregular Israeli, brings a sacrifice, something to the temple, perhaps we don't have to worry about purifying ourselves because it's not on that same level. But God is saying no. Even the simple Jewish person who's bringing you this offering, you must respect it, and you must not be unclean. And if you are unclean, you are defiling my name, God says. Defiling my name. This is a very profound lesson in why. It's a lesson on modesty and many other things. The most important thing in this world is for us to behave morally. And that's really what the Torah is built upon, moral code more than anything in the world. And being moral begins by modesty. When people are arrogant and they think they own the world, that's really where all the immoral behavior takes place. And they forget that there's God in the world, that there's someone above them. And that really is the entrance to all of the impurities in the world, the uncleanliness of the world, is this arrogance. And here, with a simple verse in the Torah, but God saying, listen, priests, you are on a very high level, yes, because you have a position of offering sacrifices in the temple. You are emissaries for the whole entire nation of Israel and all the things you do. But God is saying you should know something. And know something very, very well and loud and clear over here. Is that when a simple Israelite brings you something, don't think you're on a high level. If you're not clean, his offering is so holy in my eyes, just as the other offerings are, just like your offerings are. And therefore, if you're not clean, you can't touch it. You cannot touch his offering. You cannot bring it in the temple. Touching meaning going into the temple and offering that offering when you're unclean. God is showing the Kohanim that they are, in reality, they are a vessel. They are part of it. We are one nation together living in the land of Israel. And they're representing the house of Israel, but they are part of that same house. And they are not holier than thou in that respect. And of course, the Kohanim have a very, very special level of holiness, that we have to respect Kohanim, what they do. But realizing their place, and this is the message of modesty, great modesty that the Torah is teaching us here in regards to the Kohanim. They must realize, again, who they are in their place and not be arrogant. Because arrogance is really the source of all evil in the world. That's what arrogance is all about. It's interesting, if we look at the last few portions we've read Acharei Mot, which spoke about the Kohen Gadol, the great Kohen, a high priest who entered the Holy of Holies. And then right after that, last week was Kedoshim, talking about all of Israel. that we all have to be holy. And here again it talks about Kohanim doing their different things and how they have to be holy and work in the temple. So the question is, why doesn't this week's portion really come before last week's portion, Kedoshim? It would make sense to first talk about the highest level of all, the Holy of Holies, going to the Holy of Holies, the Kohen Gadol, and then mentioning the simple Kohanim, the second level, and then mentioning Kedoshim, it talks about all of Israel having to be holy. Why was it's sort of a sandwich? Why was after we're talking about the Kohen Gadol, then it talks about Kedoshim, about all of Israel being holy, Kedoshim to you must be holy, and this week's portion gets back to the Kohanim, and the answer is, I think, you call it Chidush, for the same reason. God's trying to show, you know something? Israel, the power of the Kohen, you're getting your power from the nation of Israel. You're not coming before them. You have to take them into consideration. That you are not on a higher, you think you're not on a higher level. You're not running into the Holy of Holies, or they can't go in the Holy of Holies, the regular Kohanim. You're running into the temple to do the service of God because you are a shaliach, an emissary of all of Israel. But again, you have to realize your place, and that the entire nation, you are one nation working together. You are all holy together. And this is where Korach, we're going to read about, and we get to the portion of Bamidbar, the fall of Korach, because he challenged the priesthood. And that's where it came from. He had a certain point. But on one hand, you have to realize that God develops a spiritual hierarchy in the nation, how things work. Everyone does their share. You can't, someone else has a certain function, a position. You can't come along and try to take that away from him. He has a certain job, and that's his job, and you have to respect that God gave him that special job of the priest of doing the work in the temple. And therefore, Korach tried to come along and say, no, let's all do that. And that's not true. But on the other hand, what the point that Korach was right about, which this, of course, Moses and everyone knew already, that to be modest and respect the entire nation, that we're all one nation. Everyone is holy. There is holiness in all of Israel. And I think this is really the beautiful idea that the Sforno is trying to teach us. And, he's mentioning here, hinting with a few words, that they shouldn't think the greater, that their level is above everyone, and therefore they can actually sacrifices without being, again, pure. This lesson, again, is a lesson for all of us to take with us. In our lives, everyone has a different talent and a different function in this world, position God gave him or her, and they're not better than anyone else, but they're part of a whole. Together we're building a beautiful nation. I think that's the message of Independence Day in Israel here. We are all, every one of us, are soldiers on the ground, doing something together that we can help build the land of Israel and build a country, a beautiful, thriving country together. And together with our wonderful friends throughout the world, the nations of the world, that are standing together with Israel. Everyone's doing their function together to strengthen Israel, to be strong, to be God-fearing, and together we'll be able in this situation to make the world a better place to live in, a world of, there'll be no arrogance, a world of true love, and everyone will find their place and how to be part of this amazing universe that God created, and to reach out this level of again, love of humanity, and of building our third temple, and truly reaching our redemption. And that's really what will happen when we all work together and realizing that we all have a special mission. God gave every one of us a function. And let us not be arrogant about our place. Let us know our place. Modesty is knowing your place, so a person can know who they are. Moses said about himself in the Bible, there was no one more modest than Moses. And why was there arrogance? Moses knew his place in the world, but he was the most modest person on earth because he knew his place so well, and everything was done 100% b'shem shemayim for the sake of God. In the same way here, God is telling the priest over here, Emor l'kohanim, tell the priest, if you're not clean, you can't work in the temple. This whole concept of cleanliness connects, of course, to our special mitzvah we're doing now. We're counting the Omer. We are heading towards the holiday of Shavuot, which we're counting 50 days and the weeks until we reach Shavuot. Today we are the 20th day. We're going to be tonight counting the next day. And what does this counting mean? This counting is a process of purification. We came out of Egypt. We were on a level of uncleanliness. We were worshiping idols, unfortunately. But in reality, it was only on the outside, just to make the Egyptians accept us or not abuse us too much. But in reality, Israel always had that loyalty to God on the inside. But after coming out of Egypt, we had to shed off this uncleanliness. So this uncleanliness of all of Israel. Not only uncleanliness of touching something or different kind of ways when you're touch a dead body or a leper, or the other kinds of uncleanliness things that there are out there. But there's also uncleanliness that enters our soul because of reaching, unfortunately, areas of idol worship. People touch upon that, unfortunately, in their thought process or in their mingling. And this is what happened to Israel when they were mingling with idols in Egypt. And therefore, by going through this period that Israel went throughout counting the days to receiving Torah on Sinai, they were shedding the different husks. They were eliminating all that impurities. And that was a way of purifying themselves as well. Until they actually reached the great height of receiving Torah, we were completely pure. We're able to actually connect to our groom. Israel's the bride and God is the groom. And actually the marriage of receiving Torah with the canopy, the mountain above, covering over them. And we know at a wedding we always say, oh, making noise when the bride and groom come out. And that was like similar to we heard the shofar blowing on the mountain. And the lightning that was coming down was like the candles the parents hold when they walk the bride and groom down to the canopy. So all these things are repeating that actual celebration of receiving Torah on Sinai is a marriage. And this marriage comes from us purifying ourselves. So purity is so important in Judaism and the Torah. Here we see this expression again, how the Kohanim have to be pure, how we have to relate to one another, and that's relate to the nation of Israel. We're one beautiful nation together. And that's the bride of God. And together we build a nation. And this expands itself to uniting with the world, as the world, Israel is supposed to be the groom of the world, and the world, the bride of Israel. To eventually connect everyone together, and all unified, of course, in worshiping God, the one God of the universe. And this all happens, of course, through modesty and purity. And these are the lessons, some of the small lessons that we can find in this week's portion. But anyway, Shabbat Shalom, Besorot Tovot, Yeshavot Nechamot. Miss you all. And until next week, it's going to be hard. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. Catch you all soon. Bye-bye.